Hello everyone, welcome back to one of my video reviews. So in today's video, I'll be reviewing the new Type C, specifically this Type C3, from Singaporean watch label GANE. So it's been some time since I covered like a local watch brand on my YouTube channel or on my website, so I'm really stoked and excited to return to my roots. So let's see if this GANE Type C3 is any good. So let's start with the specifications. So for starters, I would say the Type C3 or Type C in general has decent specifications for the price. So let me close to the camera. First and foremost, there is a box sapphire crystal. So as aforementioned numerous times in all my previous reviews, I'm a huge advocate for sapphire crystal due to the inherent scratch resisting properties. So personally for me, I always look for sapphire crystal in my modern watches. It just adds greatly to the durability of the watch. I should highlight that the box sapphire crystal, may I show you the side. The box sapphire crystal really mimics, I would say, the old school aesthetic of plexiglass well, so it gives the Type C a very nice retro vibe. And in addition, the brand states that the underside of the sapphire crystal is actually coated with anti-reflective coating, so you can see there's not really much reflections here. It's a very legible watch, so you don't have to worry about like reflection when you take photos or things like that. It also has a 5 ATM water resistance rating, so it makes it robust enough to withstand rainy days or like running taps, no issues. Now inside, so it's a closed case back, so you won't be able to see the movement. But on the inside, is the Miyota 8215. So some specs, the Miyota 8215 possesses a power reserve of about 42 hours, has 21 joules, and accuracy about minus 20 seconds to plus 40 seconds per day. Hand winds, but it does not hack. So when you pull out the crown, as you can see, the movement, the second hand still continue to run, so that's not hack, which is a shame. And yeah, I'm not usually not a fan of the Miyota 8 series movement, right? Sometimes the rotor is loud, although it doesn't really much of an issue in this case. But sometimes the rotor is loud, and the second hand, again, although it's not an issue in this particular watch, sometimes the second hand is prone to stuttering. So it's not really my favorite movement. But at this price point, you can't really complain much. Although I would say that given the 495 or about 500 USD price point of the Type C, I would have expected a Swiss movement, so you can easily find Tissot or Hamilton at this price point, or at the very least, Miyota 9 series, something like the 915 for example. Putting an 8 series Miyota movement in like a 500 USD watch, it's just a bit of a disappointment, although there's nothing I guess inherently wrong. It's not really affected by my day-to-day usage of the Type C, but I would just have loved like a more premium movement. Although that being said, I should stress that GANE states that every watch is tested for function and autonomy in Switzerland. So basically it's tested for accuracy, before it ships in Switzerland. So I've not encountered any accuracy issues with my review piece at all. What I did really like was this thick 4mm leather strap that you guys can see here, which GANE, the brand, says that it's fashioned out of high quality European leather. So I'm not quite sure if it's like a full grain leather or top grain leather or what sort of leather it is, because it doesn't state so on the website. But it feels very nice to the touch, and it's definitely a step above its competition in this sub $500 price point. There's also side stitching, and it's also rather thick at 4mm, so there's this very nice vintage vibe, I guess, to the strap, which I guess pairs very well with the neo-vintage aesthetic of the Type C. So yeah, overall I would say the specs of the Type C is satisfactory. I would have preferred a more premium movement, but I think the box sapphire crystal and the premium strap sort of makes up a little bit for it. Now let's move on to the design, and let's bring this a bit closer to the camera. So while the Type C, as you probably have inferred by now, isn't really like a specs monster, I really do like its alluring design language. So first and foremost, again, let's do a close up, right? I really do like the dial of the Type C for what is layered. So you can see there's actually a dual layered here, which gives the watch depth. So I do like the groove indices, and it reminds me of panorized sandwich dials, even though the brand states that it's supposed to resemble sundials. Secondly, both surfaces, so you can see the base layer as well as this upper layer, are brushed. So the texture is particularly evident in this C3 colorway as compared to the navy one. GANE has stated that on this GANE stems from the Japanese words hagane, right, which means metal. So GANE said that brushed steel metalwork would be a mainstay in watches, and it really shows in this Type C3. The brushed surface is very striking, and see how it plays with the light here. So it's really striking, and The sleek monochromatic look of this silver on silver tone reminds me of the new Bulgari Octofinismo steel, a watch that I simply adore and I really do want to get at one point in time. Now, I should mention that the Type C is available in two other colorways, the C1, which is salmon dial, C2 and a navy dial, and this C3, which is a sort of silver dial. So it does come in multiple colorways, but I find this still to be, showcase like the brush texture the best. Now let's talk about the case. So the Type C features a vintage S barrel case with very prominent brushing on the front. And we bring this closer to the camera. You can see very prominent brushing here, very obvious brushing, and on the sides. So very nicely satin brushed throughout. There's also all these polished chamfered edges that runs along the flanks of the watch. It just provides a very nice contrast, the polished chamfered edges as compared to the brush sides and the front. GANE states that the case is executed by a trusted company in Switzerland, a member of the Federation of the Swiss Watch Industry, and it shows. I really do think that the finishing here is one of the best that I've seen, at this price point. There's even a very nice sign crown, which is very well proportioned, so very easy to hand wind, no issues with hand winding the watch at all. It comes, I mentioned earlier, it comes with a closed case bag, which I'm fine with, given that the rather pedestrian movement within. Interestingly, the case back artwork is conceived by the brand's founder himself, was inspired by his late mom. If you want the details of what this motif means, you can check out his website. He really goes into detail like what art is supposed to represent. Alright, without further ado, let me put this on the wrist and show you guys how it wears. Alright, so let me do a wrist roll. There you go. So on my 7-inch wrist, I'll say the Type C wears pretty well. It has a case diameter of 38mm and a lug to lug of just 45. So 38, 45. It's a very neo-vintage dimension. So in the sense that it's smaller than most modern watches, but it's still bigger than your typical vintage watches, right? So to me, just the Goldilocks sizing. The only downside I have is that it's slightly thick again because of the Miyota 8 series movement. It will be slimmer if it had a 9 series movement, but it is a bit thick at 30mm. So I would have liked it to be closer to 10. It still slides under shirt cuff well. You can still wear it as a dress watch in a way, but I would have liked it to be closer to 10. But yeah, overall, very nice dimensions to the Type C. And obviously, overall, I really enjoyed the design of the Type C. I think the usage of the brush surfaces, you can see how it plays again with the light, is very intriguing, and the case is finished to a relatively high degree. So, and I appreciate the vintage undertones of it as well. It's very clear to me that ample thought has been paid to the design. Overall, I do like the Type C. It has decent specifications and a well-conceived aesthetic that really display a maturity rarely seen in debut collections. I really grew to like the steel and steel color scheme of the Type C3, and I appreciated the neo-vintage attributes. My only downside is really like the average Miyota 8215 movement within. So hopefully the brand upgrades the movement in future iterations of Type C. Alright, if you're interested in purchasing a Type C, you can do so on GANE's web store. The leather version of this goes for 495 USD or about 675 Singapore dollars, while there's a bracelet version costs an additional US $50. So yeah, although it may not possess the specifications, I believe Type C is more than the sum of its parts. Ultimately, it's well put together and it remains fairly affordable at under 500 USD. Singapore may not be short of watch microbrands, but GANE definitely I would say is a notable addition. Alright, and that rounds up my review for today. If you like the video, do give it a thumbs up, do comment below what you think of the Type C, and do share the video around and do subscribe to the channel. As always, I'll see you guys in my next video. Ciao!